Okay, good afternoon and good morning, because we have some people from Canada. To all our distinguished panelists and attendees of today for the panel about the 5G at the time of COVID-19. My name is Tony Eid. For the attendees who don't know me, I'm the founder of Telecom Review and the CEO of Trace Media. And I have the pleasure to be your host and your moderator for today's session. I would like to welcome our panelists, Hatem Bamatraf, CTO Etisalat, Dr. Ibrahim Jadon, CTO Teles, Haitham Faraj, Senior VP Technology and Operator Unit, Saudi Telecom STC, and Jian, President of Carrier Business Group, Huawei Middle East, Femi, Vice President, Service Providers for Middle East and Africa, Comscope, Ghazi Atallah, CEO of NXN, Muhammad Samir, VP of Global Services for Middle East and Africa, Nokia. So I would like to welcome each of you, and we'll go to our first question. Please, I want to ask you something. When you're not talking, you're listening, mute your micro. It's better to me. For the Q&A, you have to look to the Q&A. For all our attendees, please make sure when you ask, don't ask or send anything on your Q&A chat, okay, until we give you the question session start. Okay, now we have to listen to our distinguished panelists. Okay, now delay in 5G deployment causes a consequence. Okay, the delay of 5G deployment. Okay, what is consequence in the what we can feel in this crisis? What the delay? I will start by you, Hatem, please.
Yeah, okay, so what, of course, this pandemic have impacted us in multiple of dimensions. And of course, telecommunication also one of the industry and one of the sector that has been impacted. Probably it's not as high as others, but we've seen also an impact. Hopefully, you know, till the end of the year, we will be able to recover from this impact. So the things what we noticed during this pandemic is that there is a slow, and this is definitely is understandable from the vendors on the supply chain part. So what we notice is that there is a delay in execution on rollout, on supplying equipment, and putting people, you know, on the field. We manage this to some extent, and it depends on country by country, because we are existing, you know, in a multiple of geographies, and the restriction in every country differs from one to the other, and this has impacted the rollout and the execution of the project. So this is in general from telecommunication and from a network. So this has also impacted our 4G, our 3G plans also, and definitely the 5G, the fixed network, and etc. So what we notice also that it's worth mentioning is that voice has declined in this pandemic. During when they started the curfew until today, we've seen that voice has been declined. Not so significant decline, but there is a noticeable, let me say, decline in voice traffic. Data has not been impacted. In the contrary, data is actually growing. So we are seeing there is a lot of activities from the customer. They are using a lot of connectivity, whether it's at home or limited mobility that they have, but the consumption of data is very high, or it's increasing. What we've done also to mitigate the risk of the delay of the rollout and of the project and execution, we reshuffled our priorities. So we tried to target the areas that, because of this curfew, there are tourist attraction places like hotels, resorts, are on totally, of course, lockdown. And we had to manage that kind of situation. So we had to take this into consideration when we plan our rollout and our execution. And this is what we've done. So we tried to reshuffle and reallocate our capex and our plans during this pandemic in order to address and target the main areas of concern. So we have diverted, let me say this, our plan for more of an expansion to upgrade capacity, to upgrade also and enhance the IP layer, and etc. As of 5G in particular, we have launched 5G, of course, in 2 of our markets, in Saudi and in UAE. It's definitely, and this is what we saw whenever we introduce any new technology, it takes some time really to, to attract users and to be able to build use cases. And most specifically that 5G is a technology that will see a lot of uptake from the enterprise segment rather than the consumer. Of course, handset penetration also plays a major role in the uptake of the 5G, but the main really driver for 5G as a technology is the enterprise segment. So the number of use cases that is available, it's still, limited. But the forecast and the expectation is really high, and the hope, of course, that 5G will drive a lot of businesses and open a new revenue stream. This is something that we hope it will happen.
Thank you, Haitham. Brahim, if you can explore, I know the 5G is not fully deployed in Canada. In GCC, maybe more deployment, but you still have case. How you manage the traffic and your network during this COVID-19 crisis?
I mean, I think both our 2 national competitors launched 5G. I mean, Bell and Rogers launched 5G, and we have network sharing agreements with both. So I just want to end up with Hatem's last point. Like 5G, really the difference between like our 4G speeds are into the gigs. So fundamentally from a consumer point of view, there was no difference, but all of us worked mainly with the enterprises for 5G to prove the use cases. So with COVID, there's been a lot of, we're all getting used to a different way of working. So that is the part that slowed down. So if you want to prove things like slicing, low latency, all the 5G special cool things. So that's, I think, like we're in no rush to honestly launch till we see some of those characteristics. Could be yes, could be tomorrow, could be in a couple of weeks, but devices are still a problem. I don't really think it slowed anything down beyond put a stress on the current network. So I think we're public. Everybody's working from home, so it looks for Canada, it's like every day is like Christmas Day where people don't go out and work. So the traffic is 3.7%, 3.7x of what it used to be from the home. And unlike what has been experienced earlier, all the governments announced toll-free numbers. So actually our voice networks were under a lot of stress with peering and interconnecting. So we took it as an opportunity to do a lot of capacity upgrades. And I have to say, people don't appreciate, they talk about everybody, but I think, can you imagine if we were all at home without internet? So glad things are still going, but I do believe, Tony, from a 5G point of view, COVID might have had some delays, but I don't think material.
Thank you, Brahim. Okay, now my question will go to Haitham because STC already deployed 5G big scales. Okay, so Haitham, can you tell us what's happened in Saudi during the COVID-19 and your data and everything? Unmute your micro, please.
First of all, thank you, Tony, I think, for holding this discussion panel, and I'm very much pleased to be part of that panel. probably when we speak about the 5G development and deployment globally, and I think we all, I mean, the whole industry, they share common observation of what's happening during, and I will go back into probably Hatem have mentioned that principally that the lockdown measures that has been taken by different countries are probably put different probably position from a telco operator to another, and there are multiple dimensions. I think the uncertainty for the recovery, I would say, period, and again the supply chain of equipment was definitely one of the reasons. Speaking as well into the logistical and supply chain challenges, because we've seen lots of interruption on the aviation and the airlines industries, and the customs, and those challenges definitely have impacted. Definitely there were also limitations when we talk about field deployments, the curfew that has been taken by a majority of the countries, and this is also the kingdom is part of that, regime, have also has a lot of impact. Probably we have heard also lots of discussions from the vendor when we speak about the 5G standardization development. We've seen a lot of impact, especially to the ongoing development, either on, I mean, probably from adopting the virtual environments and these kind of things. We have seen that, or we have observed that there are talks about delays in standardization, especially on the future development of advanced services of 5G. But very important point I think Hatem have talked about is the shift in priorities. I think although the impact on the telco industry probably compared to other industries is heavily impacted, but there, I mean, telcos, they went into at the beginning of the pandemic, especially with the economical challenges that happened, so looks into probably what might be the priorities, because sustaining existing traffic and customer experience, and probably dealing with the impact that we have seen, specifically on data, that at least in STT we have seen it different days and different occasions that varies from 15 to 25% growth in the mobile network traffic. That shift a lot of focus from probably slowing down some of the network, the 5G deployments, and do a lot of functions with existing 4G infrastructure footprint. So because we have an existing base, you know for a fact that the 4G penetration devices were probably wasn't a priority at this point. I mean, these dimensions as consequences have impacted different the development of 5G at large, and we talk especially on some operators who went a little bit much more advanced on the IoT and on connected cars and probably more innovative 5G services. We have seen, at least from the industry, there were a lots of impact of the same. When we speak of ECC, definitely there were a lot of activities that were taken internally, really, to make sure that we re-optimize the existing network, shifting some capacity. The distribution of the network traffic, we have seen it moving from, I would say, the centers of the cities all the way to the probably the change on the society behavior and the user behavior definitely have shifted lots of it triggers a change of strategy in the way that we manage the existing networks. I believe all of these challenges will stay for a period of time. In STC, as probably we have started probably early enough, and this was part in relating to the initiatives that has been put by the government maybe 15 months back. We started early in 5G deployments, and there were definitely a slight impact on existing deployment, but probably the timely investment that we have taken last year had helped us really to see. But again, I would say that the penetration and the usability of 5G is still at the beginning, specifically on speaking about the kingdom. I think these are the points from my point of view that I think that might relate into the delays on the impact on the development.
Thank you, Haitham, very much. Now, Let me go to Anjian from vendor point of view. Okay, so the 5G deployment causes consequences, all the delay. Can you elaborate, please, on this?
Thank you, Tony, for invitation. I think the pandemic somehow has slowed down the 5G deployment worldwide in recent times. However, we can also see many countries, such as KSA and the UAE in the region, accelerating the 5G investment. If we really need to address the cost from the pandemic on 5G deployment, it can be mainly attributed to two areas. First being is the efficiency of the network rollout was slightly affected by the lockdown, which delayed 5G deployment directly, but not significantly. And secondly, the pandemic situation have also brought uncertainty to the business development and the financial performance forecast. So these reasons combined has caused few countries or operators to reduce the pace of 5G deployment. As a consequence, we can see that during pandemic, huge amount of data traffic was generated at home. The home applications such as entertainment, remote education, remote meetings have seen upward surge. 5G was the best option to quickly ease the network pressure. However, if the slowdown in 5G deployment has affected network coverage and capacity in some areas, the user demand will be suppressed and also cause the operator to lose few market opportunities. We also see that 5G is actually not the only option to combat the pandemic. For example, in Saudi and the UAE, the long-term fiber investment ensured the operator could provide high bandwidth and reliable fixed broadband during pandemic. Meanwhile, with some new services such as the specific data package and also the contactless digital service for combating the pandemic, I think the operators address their social responsibilities very well. For sure, we still believe 5G is indispensable technology to fight with the pandemic. Already, we can see that recently the shipment of the 5G CPEs in Middle East has tripled, mainly for the home business. Some governments and enterprises, such as the Kuwait National Bank, has used the 5G lease line to realize the quick deployment of the mobile ATMs. Both Saudi and Kuwait with 5G networks enable the collection and analysis of the pandemic-related information, which support the pandemic prevention effectively. So in a nutshell, we can say that these delays were temporary and are now quickly being replaced by the appetites and the willings from the countries to both strengthen and upgrade their ICT infrastructure in order to restore the economy. Tony.
Thank you, and we'll talk later about some delay in production in China of your 5G deployment network. This is later, we'll talk about it. Now I would like to ask the same question from Femi, from Comscope, especially you have a lot of radio technology, antennas, and even fiber. So please go ahead and comment on this, Femi.
So if you take a step back and think of 5G as an improvement in efficiency, whether efficient use of your spectrum, ease of installation, optimization, power, then whatever investment you're putting in now, whether it's strictly 4G or 5G, doesn't go to waste. So in terms of specific spend on 5G radios or 5G core or 5G equipment, yes, there's been a slowdown. But in terms of spend overall, improving your efficiency, that we believe there's only been a short and temporary setback. For 5G specifically, the setback might not be such a bad thing. Obviously, as vendors and operators, we're all hurting right now. But as a region and people that work and live in this region, we think this setback has sort of highlighted where there is a specific demand in the network, where there's capacity requirement, latency reduction requirements, reliability. There's a need for additional reliability. So it gives the operators, and we've heard the operators say exactly that, time to sort of reassess. Yes, it might start with looking at the existing 4G, but all that, the way we see it as Comscope, is a preparation for 5G. It also gives operators, and we as Comscope, thank you for mentioning our portfolio, opportunity to look at power. So many of our, perhaps the more advanced operators will only see a 30-40% increase in power. But in many cases where the operators are starting from a lower base of 4G, they would see a doubling in power. That's a significant thing to think about for many operators. Some operators, like MTN South Africa, that's a very, very significant spend. If you take that, for example, backhaul. Again, in the Gulf countries, we're very lucky, we're privileged. A lot of the sites are fiberized, but think of how many sites would need to be fiberized. Site acquisition, perhaps even in-building solutions or metro sites. So we see that 5G per se has suffered a temporary setback, but it's only clarified the need to spend in all these other areas such that when the demand picks up again, the network operators will be fully ready. It would also give time for two additional things. Now, let's be honest, the use cases are still not, at least we're not sure how to monetize the use cases that are being thrown out there today. So it would give us time to sort of rethink and think of how to monetize those use cases. And there was also a mention of devices. Every week and month that we've lost now is hopefully going to be regained in device costs coming down. So we see it as a temporary setback for the industry and for the spend out in the market, but not a permanent one. The good thing as well is what we're seeing as Comscope when we're talking to operators, they're really thinking about their partnerships again. The industry has been largely about price and the huge price pressures. Now, some companies have been able to differentiate themselves in terms of the supply chain diversification. Now the product roadmaps, when spectrum has suddenly become available, has become a key differentiator. Perhaps wasn't regarded so highly not so long ago. Local presence, and close partnerships and so on and so forth. So there's been a benefit, we hope, for companies like ours when we come out of the 5G. So it is a mixed bag. One final comment. I mean, the big spend has started to happen late last year, if I may. STC, it's public information, spent a huge amount preparing for 5G in the last 15 months, say, by consolidating all their assets, all their spectrum assets, antenna assets into single antennas, such as that from Comscope, including from Huawei as well. And now the 5G investment is just an uptick from that. So we see that other operators in the region would have to do likewise. STC has shown the way. UAE is equally doing, both our partners at Etisalat and Du are doing similar. And we think that shows the way for many others. They're smaller complex for smaller operations in Qatar and Kuwait as well to look at. But when you now start thinking, how does this scale in Egypt, for example, in Morocco, or eventually in parts of Africa, then we got to find a lower cost base, and we got to look at all these examples and bring it down to efficient levels. So we think 5G, this setback, COVID setback, yes, temporary delay in shipping radios and has messed up our supply chains a little bit right now, but will bring bigger advantages because it will bring clarity to us all, let's say 6 months from now.
Thank you. Thank you, Femi. In fact, you must answer the second question also, which is the impact of the delay on telecom operator and vendors. So I start with Muhammad and Ghazi just commenting on the second part because its cause, consequence, and impact, it was the same. So Muhammad, can you please collaborate on this?
Sure. So first of all, I fully agree, and I would like to start with what Hatem, Ibrahim, and Haitham mentioned about the change of traffic during COVID. So what happened in the reality? COVID created a new norm. The whole population moved to a new digital way of working and living. So in a couple of weeks, we've seen, initially with the COVID, an increase of around 35% or even more in mobile data traffic. even more on fixed broadband. So this kind of traffic increase we used to see in 1 year, we've seen in a couple of weeks. So, and of course, we've seen as well change of traffic behavior, moving from the cities to rural and suburban. This is why the priority of all operators and vendors in the short term was two things. First, to secure the performance, and second, to scale the capacity to cope with this new demand during this COVID-19. However, in my point of view, I cannot call it really as a delay of 5G or a major delay of 5G. I can only call it as a short-term change of priority, where the priority was to secure and scale. However, it doesn't mean in the same time that the operators and vendors will not work on the stimulation part, where they need to, post the COVID, to support the economy through the 5G and use cases of 5G to enable for digitalization and to support the economy after that. We see as well that in the same time, the COVID-19 has shown us a need to speed rather than slow down the 5G as an enabler to accelerate the digital transformation. Last thing I want to mention, and this is very important from my perspective, I think as an industry, I think we did as a telecom industry pretty well to support what happened and to support the society through what happened. I mean, we support them to support the society through very rigid business continuity plans and introducing way of working. I mean, in a few weeks, we had to operate in a different way. We had to support networks through acceleration of automation, digitalization, all that through a seamless operation where all the workforce of telecommunication as well shifted to a work from home scheme. So I think we did pretty well. And I think people seeing the difference of network quality makes to their daily life. So this is why, in my point of view, I see it only a short-term change of priority. However, I don't see a major 5G strategy change. And I think 5G will be even more important now as a key enabler for the industry and to support the economy post-COVID.
Thank you, Muhammad. I will go to Ghazi for an independent opinion about the delay and the impact, So Ghazi, please go ahead.
Well, I think my colleagues covered many of the key points here in terms of delay and impact. Clearly, as mentioned in the beginning, the telecom operators had to review and refresh and kind of jig their environment to be able to cope with the increase in demand, which was caused by, of course, COVID-19, people working from home, lots of demand on the network, connectivity, collaboration, cloud, as we see here. So that is clear and that's apparent, and I agree. I think the telecom industry did a pretty good job at that, and most people are actually able to get their job done remotely and get to either job or entertainment, because at home there's lots of entertainment issues as well that we have to take care of. But with the family, not only working, but also making sure they receive their streaming and so on. So entertainment, working from home, cloud and connectivity, that was actually surprisingly very well done from the entire industry. And I think people would say yes to that. I think the other element that this would bring is digitization as a whole, not just working from home or being entertained remotely, but also digitization in the sense of business digitization, which is what's going to happen now. The acceleration of this digitization and what 5G can bring to it is going to be quite important over the next period of probably 12 to 18 months, as we see that not only do we need to work remotely, but then we need to actually accomplish business processes remotely. We need to digitize this. So there's going to be lots of things happening. Whether it's digitizing health, which we've seen accelerate a lot with the advent of telemedicine and people actually being diagnosed remotely, which becomes even more important in these situations, or remote patient monitoring. If people are diagnosed, then they need to be monitored and managed on a longer term basis. So the digitization of health becomes critical. And this is going to be even accelerating even further, and 5G plays an important role there. The digitization of safety and security, and this is important as well, because what's one of the key aspects of safety and security is video. And we know now with the advent of video everywhere, cameras everywhere, and the ability to consume these video streams and analyze them and bring AI to bear to bring the really nice use cases around safety and security. This is going to accelerate even further because we've seen some of the possibilities of that, because countries now need to understand what's happening, where is movement, where is no movement, what are the reactions that they need to do in real time with relationship to this level of data. And then of course, again, 5G plays a key role in these because they're going to be bandwidth intensive, they're going to be timely, we need to make sure they're in real time. So I clearly see, and we see that there's going to be an acceleration of digitization, but from a business process standpoint, the use cases around safety and security, digital health are clear already. First responders and other types of capability around 5G, they're already clear, they're already right there. However, it will take time for the two to come together, the infrastructure and the use cases to be developed even further. So from our point of view, we think the telcos have done their review and refresh. The businesses and the entities will do their own review and refresh. So let's review our current plans, let's refresh, and let's think about what do we need to change because of the pandemic, and what do we need to digitize, what technology do we need to leverage. And that's happening as we speak now. Each company that we are talking to, each government entity is saying, okay, I'm going to rethink and refresh what's my roadmap, what are the services that I need to digitize, and that's what we see happening.
Thank you, Ghazi. Now we will have a question. We have question from our attendees. The first question is from Bilal Jamousi. I will address to Haitham, Brahim, and Hatem. Okay, what percentage increase in the traffic have you observed during the COVID-19 lockdown? We can start by you, Brahim.
Sure, thank you. I think what was really clear, as I said, everything looks like Christmas Day, which in Canada is the busiest traffic from home because nobody goes out. So it's in the almost 4x in terms of home, with education from home, working from home. So on that part, what was very interesting, Bilal, for the question is the downtown was empty. So what was usually, there was peak mobile traffic in the downtown areas, that's completely emptied out, and that still continues. So we saw the shift of traffic actually on the mobility where it spiked to 40% the first couple of days. It's actually lower overall from a capacity point of view on the wireless network, and the wireline network is in the almost 4x range for us, for TELUS in Canada.
Thank you, Brahim. Now we'll take same answer from you, Haitham. What the case in Riyadh of the traffic percentage increase?
Well, if you look into the voice traffic in the mobile voice, we have a slight decrease. Although probably if you compare it to Europe, probably there was a big increase. And in the mobile data part, we have seen increase that reach around 23-25%, and this almost correspond to a full year growth in our mobile network. The interesting part is in the fixed, and we have seen growth in our fixed network that grew up to 55-60% growth in the network. And going back into the point that we have seen also, worth mentioning that we have observed also a major demand, especially from the consumer into the fixed. And when we go into a little bit more details into what specific applications have grown, we have seen growth in YouTube around 20%. We have seen collaboration tools, Zoom and Microsoft, that has been also leveraged and used by the education industry, reaches around 1,000%. And we have seen major growth, 300% on gaming and other applications. So we have to look into the overall probably traffic, but we have to make sure that we also dimension and take into consideration the major jump that we have seen it in very specific applications that might require special focus and optimization to make sure that we get the experience.
Thank you, Haitham. Now we have one question also from George Dabaghi, head of MENA region for MediaLink. Can we get a conscious impact of COVID in Middle East region on operator traffic? The sampled info indicates around 42% rise in traffic during the sustained COVID period, where the work from home trend has emerged. Can we get a reel across your network? This I will ask you, Hatem, please. Anyway, you can read the question in the chat as well.
Okay, it's I guess it's the same question like the previous one, which is the percentage of traffic increase in light of this pandemic situation. And maybe funny enough is that subscriber behavior, especially here in GCC, does not really differ. So what Haytham said exactly, what's the same percentages that we saw as a traffic increase. So we witnessed, as I indicated in my introduction, that we noticed a decline in voice, not significant though decline, but it's very clear that the voice is not stagnant, it's actually going down. And we've seen an increase in the mobile broadband of around 25%. And this is pretty much across all of our operations. And it's not only in one specific geography. This is the same trend in Egypt and Pakistan, even in Afghanistan and in Mobile UAE also. What we've noticed that the fixed part, which is where people spend most of their time at homes during the pandemic, the traffic went much more higher. It went to a percentage of 50%. So this is what we saw. So thanks God we had the necessary cushion in the network, and we, as I said, we prioritized our capex and our investment in order to do the necessary expansion to Qatar for this traffic growth. But this is pretty much the percentages that we saw.
Thank you, Hatem. Now I have a question to Ghazi from Christine of Telecom Review. What are the main technologies that businesses should leverage in the post-COVID-19 period?
Yeah, interesting. So I think as always, technology for the benefit of business and not the other way around. So this is, if you look at what's happening today, one of the key things that telcos can provide is, of course, the connectivity and the infrastructure. We talk about the infrastructure level, it's cloud, connectivity, all kinds of capability that actually augment the ability of the enterprise to scale. Now, beyond this, beyond the enterprise scaling, the enterprise needs to look at data and data tools and data technologies to be able to then leverage the scalability from an infrastructure standpoint to say, what do I need to do differently? Let me look at my data, other sources of data, and analyze that and see what the enterprise can do differently. So partnering with the telco on the infrastructure, on eventually 5G, connectivity, cloud, and I think also the telcos and the government together will play a role even more in the future with regards to connectivity or infrastructure type services like digital identity or digital signature and others that enable this kind of collaboration, right? Because these are fundamental. No company can do it on their own. These become infrastructure, telco, government type capabilities that need to be augmented. Beyond this, data, of course, within the enterprise, using the technology tools like, of course, AI, because everybody talks about AI and blockchain and these kinds of technology enablers. But at the end of the day, it's about the use case. What do you want to digitize in the enterprise? Use data to understand what's your business, and use data to understand how do you need to integrate with customers better, the customer engagement, efficiency in operations, and so on, and then determine the right technology to use to be able to do that. But I do think that the telcos and government need to come together to provide even more infrastructure, and I say that loosely, infrastructure type of identity, like digital payment, like all of these capabilities that enable us to collaborate and work remotely, not just, of course, what we're seeing here today. And then the enterprise needs to do its part with data and other types of tools.
Thank you, Ghazi. I will go to the same question of Ghazi to Muhammad, and please, Muhammad, can you elaborate What is the technology you are looking on this? What the lesson from internet business should leverage, okay, in the post COVID-19? What do you think?
Okay, so let me answer it in 2-3 different perspectives, Tony. So first of all, I think what helped a lot from 5G perspective during the pandemic, it was clearly the fixed wireless access. So first of all, what happened? I mean, when the traffic shifted to rural, fixed wireless access solution over 5G played the key role to provide effective way of fast expand broadband to access.
In fact, we have a question from Bilal ITU about this in the chat. You can see it in Q&A. I guess if you can elaborate to Bilal also, you can write
Sure.
answer to him and everybody will see it.
Sure.
Because
so then I will elaborate on that.
It should be short, quick, because we have break and then we have to resume the panel.
Sure. So maybe you can answer first. Should I answer Bilal's question first, or yeah?
No,
okay.
That's fine. You can answer during the break.
Okay. So I was talking about fixed wireless access and the importance now in the pandemic, but now about the future and how this can help digitalization. Of course, I'll help the industries. So here I would like to think a little bit futuristic, let's say. So what if 5G was deployed everywhere, and what if we had the full potential of the use cases and we had a mature ecosystem? What would happen to support the business? In my point of view, we wouldn't face all the impact on the economy we're facing today. All business would not suffer as we face today. So if we have the full potential of use cases, we can help the industry, we can help, and we would have the cloud integrated networks, we would have the application on 5G, we would have the advanced analytic artificial intelligence, we would have the convergence of humans and digital and physical worlds, we would have a prevention even mechanism for pandemic, and then we're allowing business to operate during this business, during this pandemic. And the example I would like to always take is the airline. So now airline industry has been suffering. So imagine if with the technology of 5G, if with the use cases, you would go on an airplane and you feel positive that all the passengers flying on the airplane are all safe. This could save the airline industry. It all linked and all linked industries. So there is countless application in generally that the economy would not have been suffered as of today. And I think what is very important to mention here is that COVID-19 was an eye-opener. Eye-opener on what? On the fact that in some countries, governments, public services, as well as many private sector are behind digitization. So being an eye-opener, I think now will trigger massive digital transformation projects. I think 5G capability will accelerate this digital transformation and will allow a faster adoption of digital service, and hence will help the business in the future.
Thank you very much. Now we have questions from Hazim Jalal from PwC. COVID-19 has shown that connectivity is an essential component of functioning economy. Is there an opportunity finally for the telecom industry to have the beneficiary sectors, health, education, etc., bear some of the upfront cost of deploying 5G, or at least get subsidized, reduce spectrum cost from the regulator? Femi, do you like to answer on this, or I'll go someone else?
Yeah, I'm back. I had a few problems with my line. Let me give you an example of what happened in South Africa, for example. So the government realized, okay, we need to, in some ways, subsidize the economy, but they're also having deficit problems. And they decided one way we can do it is issue free spectrum to the network operators in order to sort of kick off initial deployments of 5G. So they had specifically band 700, 2600, 3500. And this really resulted in the operators having a rethink. And I think it was a fantastic stimulus. It's temporary, but it really caused the operators to start thinking of spending again, where at the start, right at the start of the pandemic, they were recoiling. In other words, they brought down the cost of the operations, at least for now, and they may well recoup it or not, but they're no longer trying to just extract maximum profit or maximum revenue from spectrum. I think this kind of thing would repeat itself in some form across many countries, and in this way, the governments would promote 5G and in return demand investment in 5G, and that would really help the growth. I also think, like I said, yes, there's a setback, but because of everything we've seen and the way traffic has moved from metros to suburbs and so on, and we've become addicted now to video calls and working from home and having broadband everywhere we go. I think we from the analysis that we've seen that there will be a major pickup in a year and a half, 2 years, exponentially at that point. Two things that we're thinking of, just very quickly. One is fixed wireless access. One CTO in the region told me they launched fixed wireless access, and they had queues during the pandemic. It was a North African country that went around the block because they had special packages around fixed wireless access. And if they were to do it in 5G, they would have an even better service. So we see that that's huge potential there. The second that we think this pandemic is going to cause is, and there was a mention of this at the very beginning, is the home. What can you do in the home? We're spending more time in the home, and you could also call that this small office, home office, or enterprise, to really provide a full service, the IoT, connect the lights and have automated voice and connect the fridges. And this is going to use some of the benefits of 5G, the low latency, high reliability, massive connectivity of many devices, and then in addition to television, video, and so on. And so we're making big investments in that space because we think that's the way you...
Thank you very much, because we have to check one more answer on this before. You can answer by Q&A. There is a question. You can answer more detail during the break.
Sure, no problem.
Ibrahim, in Canada, it's very famous that a country of the most expensive spectrum is like an auction done by the government, you know. So I live there, I'm aware. So it's really, so you can elaborate better on this.
Well, I don't think there's better or worse answers. I think, to be honest, we are carried away with launching new technology. I think Femi just captured what are we trying to actually achieve for our subscribers and national infrastructure, Tony, as you said, right? So I think one of the things that we're trying to rally around the technology because it's cool and we're all technologists. But if we think of how things are changing in terms of patterns, like if you recall a year ago in Dubai at the Telecom review meeting, we were talking about mobile edge and we were talking about smart cities. I think with COVID, we're back to infrastructure, which is really important. So I hope most of us will fix a lot of the underlying problems or our aspirations to move towards convergence. So in Canada, sadly, as you said, we have one of the highest spectrums in the world. Costs were around 4 times more than the US. So I envy the folks in the MENA region where they get much more affordable spectrums, but it is translating to more expensive bandwidth. And we do a lot of fiber to the home, Tony, to augment wireless.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I will address last question to Anjian. Okay. There have been a lot of talk about recently the greater reset. What sort of role do operator and vendor expect to play in this with regards to 5G?
Okay. So actually, it's not so clear for me what is the great reset.
In fact, it's not clear for me also. So
does it mean the resumption after the lockdown?
Sort of role, you know, because of the COVID-19, we all get lessons. Okay, so maybe Haitham Haitham, do you like to answer this question?
I mean, I think Mohammed Samir have talked about, you know, what could happen in the future, and definitely we have seen change in behavior. We have seen even the the consumer maturity around digital services and dependency start increasing, I think it will put lots of pressure and opportunities on service providers really to capture that opportunity. It gives also a threat, especially on the hyperscaler, especially in promoting lots of cloud services, especially in the e-commerce and others. So it provides an opportunities. But again, in the telco industry, I think the risk on OTT penetration, especially as digital transformation might evolve post the epidemic, it will create some sort of risk that service providers need to take it into consideration and accelerate their innovation and digital development.
Thank you, Haitham. Now it's time for the break. Please, there is an answer, a Q&A. You can type your answer to anyone. We have 10 questions, so if you want to elaborate more questions, you can do by answering, typing. And we will resume for the next session, 2 questions remaining, just exactly after 10 minutes from now. Okay? Please, this is a break, 10 minutes, and see you soon. Thank you.
Tony, I know we have a break, but it's such a construct of when we used to meet live where we needed coffee. Now that we're all at home, I think, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sitting in my kitchen, it's 5 o'clock.
We gave you time to go to your kitchen, prepare your coffee.
Oh no, but I think we could do it remotely. Like we could keep the speaker on, and then this is a new COVID.
I hope to see you, serve you coffee, and after we do our award party, and then we'll go for cigar or shisha.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna buy my coffee.
By the way, we're still on for December, okay? So you can book yourself. Yes, Hatem, book it from now, Hatem. I will not miss you this year. Yeah, okay, we'll see you in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
So from our point of view, we're definitely looking at how we redesign the networks. Like the biggest question for all of us, at least for Canada, is the downtown going to look different? Like with everybody working from home, for example, all the governments, they have 20, 30,000 employees in places like downtown Edmonton for Alberta. Will they, now that they're all working from home, will they look at this? Like a lot of our companies tell us we're 70% work from home, we're 90% now. Will we have these big office towers? And I think it's going to modify completely, like the question you asked about spectrum and cost. I think at a certain point in time, it will modify completely how we connect for regular internet and ingestion of services. So from our point of view, the impact is more on the behavior, Tony, rather than the technology deployment. And we are looking at things like reliability. I think one aspect none of us mentioned yet, which is critical, if we're working from home, or as my friend in Germany said, you're sleeping at work is the same analogy. Whether you're working from home or sleeping at work, we're all there. The biggest question I have is how is security changing? Like traditionally for our employees and our homes, we had client-based security. Is it time to look at securing the home? I'm not talking about cameras. I'm talking about cyber and whatnot. So I think that's some of the things, Tony, that fringe benefits are happening to not really 5G, but to all how we're revisiting networks.
Yeah, of course. The security of connectivity by working from home is different from working. Yeah, I agree with you. Okay, but also we have a question which is very interesting from Bilal Jamousi, ITU, that also the fixed network is growing because people working from home and sometimes they're not connected from mobile. Haitham, can you elaborate on this, please?
Yeah, I mean, when we speak, probably I refer back, in one of the questions and what we have observed in the fixed network, and we have seen, increase in demand, especially from our consumers towards fixed services. And we know for a fact that when we compare mobile versus fixed probably provide much more reliable service because it works in dedicated mode that you have, and grant require stability and compared to if you provide a fixed wireless service that you go through a shared mode. And we have seen that demand, and again, going back into the traffic, it's by far we have witnessed increase that and pushed us really to shift some of the investment that we have seen and try to expand the existing capacity on a specific congestion area. Because again, as we said, the behavior from user have rebalance and reshifting traffic from different place to another. And I think when we speak about the fixed network, and we have probably, I'm sure that everyone seen the announcement in UK around the country going into a 1 gig fiberization by 2025, and they think will motivate a lot of governments and different institutes to refocus, putting lots of focus on rolling out fix as part of a new wave of digitizing the infrastructure for the coming years to come.
Thank you, Haitham. Muhammad, anyway, was waiting for this question, I guess, because he's supporting too much fixed network. So it's yours to comment now.
Sure, Tony. So I think Haitham said it all. I mean, what was very important now during COVID is the importance of the transport layer and the fiber layer. So in some countries where the maturity of the fixed network and the fiber was there, it really helped a lot. It carried a lot of traffic. However, in some other places where there is still unserved or underserved community, this is where we've seen with the COVID the importance of the fixed wireless access, because operators needed a fast way to accelerate a rollout to serve these unserved areas and unserved communities, support them in a very fast way. And this is what we've seen during the COVID. We've seen a lot of expansion on the fixed wireless access. We've seen a lot of operators globally who change their strategy if they don't have a very strong fixed network backbone and a very strong fiber backbone to implement and accelerate the fixed wireless access. And in one of the research done by Nokia, we've seen that 75% of the consumers have seen that the main use case of 5G, which was extremely successful during COVID, was the fixed wireless access. So I think fixed had an extremely important role to play during the COVID.
Thank you, Muhammad. Now I will go to the most important question, as I said at the beginning, which is what would have happened if 5G was already deployed everywhere? Of course, this is the impact of every industry of our life. I'll start this question addressed to Anjan. Okay? Anjan, please, can you take the first answer on this question?
Thank you, Tony.
Okay.
I think I will start from, I will talk about China first, as you are very interested about China. Yeah. So actually, China maybe is one of the earliest country who encountered the outbreak of the COVID-19. But however, it is also, they get the faster period to go through that. Actually, before the pandemic, China has already deployed 5G in a very large scale. Till last year, and I think 300,000 base station was deployed in the top 50 cities. So that helps that even during the pandemic, I think there were very less impact to the society and also the operators' business. Even in the first quarter, I think everybody knows the economy of China declined by the first time in the recent years by 6.8% decline. However, the ICT industry get more than 13% growth of the GDP. So, and all three operators, including China Mobile, China Unicom, China Telecom, get revenue growth, no matter it's on mobility business or home business. And I just give you one more case for in China during the pandemic outbreak in Wuhan city. There's a miracle that Chinese people built 2 hospitals in 7 days in Wuhan suburban. And at that time, actually, there's no fiber connection to the hospital. So actually, by means of 5G, we enable this hospital to be connected just within 3 days. So I think that's the scenario how the 5G can take effect to fight with the pandemic, and also that is also the benefit, the ubiquitous 5G coverage. And also we have a case from South Korea. In South Korea, they also have a very quick 5G deployment, and they have more than 10% penetration of 5G service now, because of the very good penetration of the 5G smartphone there. But this 10% of the 5G user actually consume more than 30% of the traffic during the pandemic. So that is a very good benefit to offload the surging traffic during the pandemic. So that's why I think both South Korea and China realize how important the 5G and also the fiber as the ST infrastructure is important for the either fighting with the pandemic or try to recover the economy after the pandemic. So both of the country issue some policy like the new infrastructure in this period, try to accelerate and strengthen this enabler or foundation for the digital economy. Yeah.
Thank you, Anjan. Okay, now I'll go to Ghazi for the same question. What would happen 5G was already deployed? What the impact on the industry, on the life, everything?
Yeah, on the industry, it's the guys have covered it quite well. On the businesses and life in general, I think this is where the real-time aspect of health, the real-time aspect of safety, the real-time aspect of security would have been probably better than they are today. I think if you think about the aspects of health, particularly in these days, in a pandemic type days, if you think about the ability to reach people in real time, get to understand their health profile in real time, understand their situation in real time, be able to communicate with them in a faster and more efficient way. We struggled with telemedicine, and we struggled with these kinds of capabilities because we didn't have the infrastructure or the real-time capability to do it, which I think would have been different had 5G been deployed. I'm not a fan of Gs, I'm a fan of services. So I think it's always about what service can you deploy more efficiently than what the technology can leverage. So I think eventually all the time these things meet up. So there's a technology will enable certain types of new services will require new technology, and these things meet up all the time. So I think definitely 5G will bring on an onset of new capability that we don't have today. And new capability in terms of services will require us to get more and more infrastructure. And I do believe that digital everything will be required from the telcos in the near future. And we have to think about the way that once we work from home, what are the challenges of working from home? One of the challenges is your digital identity, your ability to take your digital health profile, your ability to sign things, your ability to pay for things. These are things that are now part of the infrastructure, if you want, that should be just for granted almost. Yes, Ibrahim.
I don't know, Ghazi. I want to reinforce, I think people underplay the importance of what you just mentioned. For example, for the longest time, digital was something we fought in at least the province I'm in, not because we're anti-technology, but because doctors were paid less interacting digitally with the patient than live. So I think there's also some regulations to support it. So yes, we should never let the good crisis go away to do 5G right and digital right. And I think we as an industry, we're all applied technologists. So for example, when we put a man on the moon, it was really fantastic for the scientists. But if you look at the industries that came around it, were what the engineers benefited from, what we built. So I'm 100% with you. Like if you look at the shock with at least some of the regulations, they would waste somebody's time for an hour and a half. So the doctor can make 20% more with a live visit. Think about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt, Ghazi.
No.
Anyway, he was done anyway. Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Ghazi. Haitham, let's go by category. How do you see the education if we have fully 5G deployed? Let's say the education. How you can see the education by studying from home now?
Well, and I think definitely as probably as things might evolve in the future, and if we put the assumptions as your question stated, if this 5G acceleration had happened during this pandemic, I mean, much better connectivity and reachability will be there for different households and different consumers, which will definitely gonna accelerate education from home and or let's say the remote education capabilities in place. 5G definitely, we cannot probably debate in the future that it will play a major role in improving the digital infrastructure capability, and there will be different industries that are going to be benefiting from some. Education definitely, we have seen it during the curfew, where we have seen around 4 million of students have been going through our network, doing their education services and working. But again, I see that thing, I mean, the whole world will change definitely post the pandemic, and lots of digital transformation across different industries will definitely accelerate. And this what brings, again, the opportunity for service providers really to promote much more, services and innovate further, either in the healthcare industry or in the educations and other public services.
Thank you.
Can I say something? Can I say something just on because Haitham actually just
Haitham inspired you
for a small comment. I think
Okay, I will let him start then next time. Okay, go ahead.
The idea of the telcos innovating, because I think this pandemic did a lot of good for the telecom industry. It put the telecom industry back at the core of the ICT industry, if I can say it that way. Now, this is an opportunity for the telecom industry to continue to take charge and continue to innovate and continue to be at the forefront. And I think as a telecom industry, we should absolutely take this advantage and innovate and then be at the forefront, because if not, very soon, in a year and a half from now, we're going to go back as the telecom industry to be the connectivity provider. And that's absolutely what we don't want to be. So I think we have a really good opportunity that was created by this pandemic to be back at the core of the ICT industry. We should definitely take advantage of it.
Okay, thank you anyway. But Femi has problem with the connection. He will be back with us. Now, Muhammad, if you will take this also to comment on what have happened if the 5G deployed everywhere.
Sure. I mean, we have to take it from two perspectives. What would happen if 5G was implemented everywhere? And what would have happened if 5G ecosystem was mature and the whole maturity and everything, and all use cases are mature? So what would happen if 5G is implemented? Haitham talked about the education. So definitely we allow the connectivity to support the remote learning. We can have more immersive learning experiences through virtual reality. On the healthcare, of course, the low latency coming with 5G will be critical for the medical, for the healthcare. I'm 100% sure as well that the network slicing will support use cases related to public safety and critical emergency service. This will be extremely critical. And of course, in general, it will accelerate a faster adoption toward digital transformation that could help many industries to sustain. Of course, the second point is the future, which I talked about it before.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Femi, can you also comment what's happening with 5G is how we can live with 5G fully deployed?
I just have one comment. Just imagine if 5G helped save all the economies of the world 5%, 10% of how much was lost. It would have paid for itself 5 times over probably by now. And that's, I mean, just reflect on that for a second. That's amazing. So I think, again, operators, regulators, governments would be having these thoughts and trying to facilitate the deployment and making sure we never see these kind of massive drops again. And we're lucky that we've come a long way. We've had good results from our 4G networks and the fixed available. But had we had the technologies and all mentioned before, improvements in education, supply chain, healthcare, and so on, perhaps on the back of 5G. Just imagine how much we would have saved compared to what has gone lost in terms of GDP around the world. So it's clear that there is going to be a push by governments, a push by regulators to promote 5G, and then the technologies, hopefully, and the use cases that we're sort of missing today a little bit will come on the back of that.
Thank you. Now I go to Hatem for the same question, because the 5G in UAE already deployed almost everywhere, not everywhere, okay, but almost, okay. So tell us how you serve the country with this deployment.
So I think my colleagues here in the panels have said it all. When it comes to what if 5G were deployed, how would you imagine the situation would be? And I like what Femi just said about the economy. If 5G has been there during the pandemic, maybe we could have saved the GDP of the economy, because the economy has been impacted severely with the pandemic because of the lack of the use case, because of the lack of the digital nature of our corporates and our businesses. So 5G would have introduced and enabled this kind of use cases and this kind of behavior. So enterprises and businesses, a lot of businesses could be fulfilled remotely. So you don't need to be physically at the workplace. You don't need to be physically in factories. You don't need to be physically on everywhere. And if you could have that technology that enables you to be away from the workplace, from your factories, then this is definitely something will help. That's one thing. The other thing that probably also my colleagues have mentioned, the immersive experience, or the experience that we saw today. So education, and we keep referring to education. Education today, although there is a lot of course, nations have implemented this work from home and studying school from home and etc. However, it's not, in my point of view, and I have children that I am assisting them, day by day on their homework and lessons and everything. I still believe being in a classroom, it's more effective than studying at home, because of one thing, because of the experience that we have. So if 5G was there and we could have enabled some virtual reality, augmented reality, you feel like you are in a classroom and you have your teacher in front of you. And if you could have this enabled by 5G, so you can imagine that you will learn, and education will not be impacted by this kind of pandemic. So probably those are the two main points that I want to mention.
Thank you. Maybe I agree with you. I'm old school maybe, but I agree that really we are still human. So as Brahim said, when we do our conference, our summit in Dubai, when we make coffee break, it's a real coffee break all together. We chatting, this is why I miss all this event. Since the cancellation of MWC, I feel sad because I do every month, maybe 4 events. Okay, so anyway, hopefully everything will be back and we got experience from now from this. We have a lot of questions. I'm happy, a lot of, it's very interactive. So I will start with the questions now. We have a question from Wadi Ardahi Sofricom. We have seen over the past years, many industries being disrupted. Do you think this pandemic has provoked the disruption of the healthcare system? And as consequence, it has unintentionally disrupted the telco infrastructure business model? Okay, we don't have to agree, but we have to answer. Who will take this question, please? Ghazi?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no question that the healthcare system has been disrupted. The way we are actually conducting and delivering healthcare as a service is quite different today with the pandemic. And as I mentioned, things like telemedicine, remote diagnostics, remote patient monitoring, these kinds of things. So people don't have to be physically in the hospital unless obviously it's serious. Yeah, it's disrupted the healthcare system. It's disrupted the ability for the healthcare system to deal with this level of onslaught, if I call it that way, of patients at one time with a specific. It's also impacted negatively the healthcare revenue. So hospitals actually have suffered during these times because their traditional business, if I can call it that way, has come down dramatically. They were only dealing with COVID, but the elective surgeries, the other stuff that makes them more revenue was impacted. So in fact, the hospitals actually suffered. Their revenues went down. The other elements that brought in the COVID element actually impacted their business overall. So the healthcare system needs to adjust and needs to be able to deal with these, and there's a clear disruption in this. Now, how does that affect the telco infrastructure? I think in the same way as others, telcos need to be able to play a very, very strong role in the digitization of health and the ability for each individual, I mentioned this earlier, each individual to be recognized in a digital way. His healthcare records and everything needs to be recognized in a digital way. So clearly, I don't believe it's going to have a big impact on the telco. It's going to have a major impact on the healthcare system, what's happened in terms of differences from a healthcare point of view.
Thank you, Ghazi. Now the question is from Jeff Seal, Managing Director of Telecom Review in North America. He say hello from Texas. Broadband use is moving from downtown areas to residential areas. Can you tell us how you have increased your fiber access to residential suburban area to support mobile towers and higher bandwidth in general while people are working at home? Interesting questions. Who will answer this, Femi or telecom operator?
I mean, Jeff, I think it accelerates our plan. We're more than 50% fiberized in a country like Canada with Alberta and BC, if I may, on behalf of my colleagues. So it consolidated what we're doing with fiber to the home, at least for TELUS. And we're looking at some remote areas with the fixed wireless access. So it's a great opportunity. It's showed that the telco versus the cable co, we're going to be more bi-directional, which is the first time, because all our lives we always said DSL is better than DOCSIS because it's not as asymmetrical. For the first time with work from home and education and Zoom calls, it's come into bearing that the fiber GPON type infrastructure or Ethernet is way better than the cable co from our point of view.
Femi, do you want to add something on this?
Yeah, I'll give one example of kind of the challenges faced. So the tower assets, for example, what goes onto the tower and what goes on the cell sites. Now, you drive down the streets, you see that the sites are increasingly congested, and in deploying 5G, you're going to add more antennas and maybe for fixed wireless access or a dedicated spectrum or a dedicated band for 5G. That's not going to be possible. So you're going to have some kind of consolidation in your sites and put everything into single antennas, for example. So these kind of less talked about basic steps will need to happen, especially in the suburban residential areas where aesthetics play a major role. You need to bring power to those sites. You need to bring fiber to those sites, and all that can and will need to continue happening in this period. So I think that's definitely going to be ongoing now, and that's definitely going to be a big part of the operator spend.
Thank you, Femi. Muhammad, do you want to elaborate more? It's something that you can say about this question, which is related to fiber, increasing fiber in the residential area?
I think my colleagues said it all as well. I think a lot of securing and scaling happened on the capacity. It was needed to cover the capacity. Fiber, in my point of view, there will be more investment in fiber in the coming future, definitely. In the short time, there was no time, of course, with the pandemic to implement a lot of fiber. So the acceleration happened with the fixed wireless access and with the increase of capacity on the network. But on the long term, definitely, I would say there'll be more investment on the fiber.
Thank you. We'll go to another question from Shalini John. Shalini is our editor in Telecom Review Asia. What would be the next step for operator in terms of maintaining client relationship during this time? Haitham, like you see, you read my thoughts.
Yeah, I think this is very important, and the maturity of operators' digital capabilities during this pandemic has played a major role. And when we see in STC, due to the fact that we probably started our digital transformation 2 years back, especially on our omni-channel capabilities and applications, we have seen major growth and demand into our our delivery capabilities of different services, either shipping devices, SIMs, and try to promote some capabilities to end users to troubleshoot their problems and activate their services. And if you see it from probably other service providers who did not probably put that investment, they have panicked, because during the curfew, lots of flagships and outlets have been shut down that somehow impacted their business performance. Not to mention the capabilities that we have developed in our call center services, where we enable lots of digital services to our customers and try to minimize people stepping into our premises. So that goes back into the relationship and the support model between a service provider or telco with the customer. The more that you go digital and you provide the seamless digital relationship, I would say that had also differentiate, I would say, from a customer experience and from a business performance perspective, the impact of that pandemic.
Thank you, Haitham. We still have a question from Tala Isa from Telecom review team also about the opportunities opportunities for operators vendor that were brought to light during the pandemic. And Jian, what do you think you can take about China case or any case? Okay. What's the opportunity created or come to the light?
Yeah, actually in Chinese word, the crisis and the opportunity is one word. That means that when we face the crisis, then we see some opportunities. I think, the 5G deployment, if we talk about the delay of the deployment, we also see that if there's no deployment, maybe we could not realize how important ST infrastructure is working towards the digital transformation. So just now I gave an example in Kuwait, the KNB. They just tried to use the 5G as the wireless lease line to realize the remote and the mobile ATM. That means the people even during the curfew lockdown, they can still doing their banking service. So I think without pandemic, maybe nobody can observe this is a trend or this is a direction for the transformation. So I think that, also I saw the question that what's the positive side for this delay? I think the positive side is, only, after we didn't get the service, then we realized, we can change the world by, establishing the solid infrastructure, either 5G or fiber, try to make sure that, the whole society or the enterprise, different industries can embrace the digital transformation.
Thank you. Now we have a question also from Raed Audi. What was the impact of the pandemic on operators' revenue? Did the traffic increase have a positive impact or just absorbed by flat data plans? What about international roaming income, of course? Who will take this answer? It's interesting about the revenues, because we never talk in this session about the impact on the revenue of operator. Yalla, Hatem. Go ahead. You can tell us.
Of course, we cannot comment on the revenue, and we are a publicly listed company. We cannot really, disclose.
We're not asking about the result, about just people shifting.
Okay, so we talked about the traffic. We talked about how we saw voice decline during the pandemic compared to before the pandemic. We talked about there is a 25% increase in mobile broadband. And when it comes to fixed broadband, there is an increase in data traffic of around 50%. But from a business point of view, we also saw lower activities when it comes to recharge. So people are not using the prepaid and the recharge as is used to before the pandemic. We've seen also, of course, less activity to our services, less activities from the B2B segments. So we witness, of course, a revenue decline. Hopefully, and it would be offset, which is very difficult with cost reduction and implying few cost measures. And this is very challenging. And of course, the situation differs from a country to a country. But overall, I would say that telecommunication is one of those sectors that has not been severely impacted with the COVID-19 situation. Unlike, for example, hospitality, aviation sector, even retailers and etc., those are heavily impacted. For us, we will see, of course, a decline. And as I said, we will try to offset that decline with a bit of cost measure. Which is a very difficult, also equation to do. Other than that, we are trying also to be flexible with the enterprises, with the business. We understand the situation, so we give also a little bit of flexibility to our high-value customers, supporting them during this pandemic situation.
Thank you, Hatem. Haitham, do you want to say anything about this, or you want to skip the revenue question?
Well, and I think I'm fully aligned with what I think there is a logical feedback that has been probably put by Hatem. We have seen definitely an impact, and there are, probably this might be offset. I mean, with lots of optimization activities, because optimization is something that I think majority of telcos really started during this this pandemic, because there are economical impact that we have seen from SMEs, from different business industries. So there is a plus and there is minuses, and I'm sure every corporate is looking into different dimensions to make sure that it fulfill its obligation, commitment to their shareholders.
Thank you very much, Haitham. Ibrahim, if you want to elaborate more on Telecom.
I mean, we're over time, but like my colleagues, we were public at our annual general meeting in the quarter. We envision $500 million worth of revenue drop because we think a lot of medium, small businesses are unable to pay. And a lot of the folks, like if you look at the airlines, are not flying anywhere. So all of us should be expecting the CIOs of the airlines to be calling their telco counterparts and asking for some sort of deal. So our modeling, let's say from 0 to 30% loss of revenue from business services and some defaults from consumer. So
okay,
anyway.
Thank you. Anyone want to add something, because time is over? I would like to thank you.
Sorry,
Yes.
you were going to add before you conclude. I actually think in 9, 12 months' time, 18 months' time, there's going to be tremendous opportunities for mergers and acquisitions. You can see what's happening in India with Jio, the entry of Google and Facebook and even Mubadala into that market. Following consolidation, and India used to be a very fragmented market. I see there are not many operators that are going to be able to survive as standalone wireless or standalone wireline. So I think business-wise, 12 months from now, I say this is going to be an opportunity as well.
Okay, thank you, Femi. Really, I would like to thank all of you. We have many questions not answered by the participant. So you can send your question to our team, and our team will try to contact each of our speaker today to get you answer if we really. But for today, we cannot extend more because I know all of you have commitments. Thank you very much for participating, and I hope to see you in soon in other opportunities or other panels. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.